بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على الرحمة المهداة محمد بن عبد الله اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكيها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. My dear respected brothers and sisters, praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who enabled us to gather in this place once again to discuss an important topic. And we've seen last week the importance of choosing or finding the perfect partner, the one who will help you along your way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And before I move into my topic today, I would like to say that this is more often than not a practical thing rather than a theoretical one. And I'm sure that everyone who's married or who's thinking of marriage has questions in their heads and, problems and obstacles along the way, which I may or I may not cover in my talks. And therefore, I think it is important that in the last session, the 2 weeks from today, that we leave a time where we will answer questions, inshallah. So if you've got any questions, especially the sisters, because it seems that they don't have a possibility of expressing themselves through what is available in this place, they could have their questions beforehand written and handed over for the last session, not today, but 2 weeks from now, inshallah. It is important that we deal with real issues. Before I start, I'd like to remind myself and my brothers and sisters of some basics, simple things which sometimes we tend to forget. And the first one is that when God wanted to create man, wanted to create Adam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala announced this to the universe, which shows the importance of man in the scheme of things. Man is very important, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam. We have honored the son of man. And the son of man here, Bani Adam, is men and women. So men and women are in a place of honor in the sight of Allah. Your wife is your sister in Islam, is a creature of Allah, is in a place of honor. Just as your husband is your brother in Islam, is someone who is created by Allah and who has been placed in a place of honor. I think this is a very important point that we must understand. Another human being is not to be treated like dirt, is not to be treated like scum, because they have been placed by Allah in a place of honor. The other thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered His angels to go and roam the earth and gather some soil from the earth. And soil was gathered from all over the earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then created Adam from this pile of soil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam from this pile of soil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have divided the pile of soil into 2 piles. From one pile, He could have created Adam, and from the other pile, He could have created Hawa, Eve. But He didn't. He actually created Hawa from Adam. And this is again a very important point. This emphasizes the oneness of creation. That man and woman are one creation. If God created Hawa from another pile, and Adam from, then we would be talking about men being from Mars and women being from Venus. That, women are made from certain minerals are missing from the pile from which women were created, or indeed certain minerals were missing from the pile from which men were created. But we can't say that because Eve, Hawa, was created from Adam. Okay? And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Eve, before that He placed Adam in paradise. And Adam was in this beautiful place, And our Prophet ﷺ tells us that Adam stawhash, that he felt lonely. Adam was lonely. Okay? And to fill up his need of companionship, Allah did not create other men. Allah created Hawa. So marriage is indeed made in heaven. Okay? And women do complement men. Anyway, that's one point. The other point I want to make, I want to go back to the contract of marriage. It is very important that our brothers and sisters understand the restrictions imposed in the contract of marriage. When we speak about marriage, we say Fatiha or Nikah or whatever, but we don't really stop to think, what does it imply and what does it mean? And let me here, put lines underneath the implications so that we understand what we're talking about. The first thing in marriage is that two families come together. The woman you marry must have her wali present with her. Unless, of course, there are certain circumstances which we will ignore the wali or he's not there for whatever reason. But in a complete, true Muslim marriage, the wali must be there. And even in the Hanafi school of thought, which can do away with the wali if the two are compatible, okay, this is not something that is done lightly or done easily. In preference, they prefer the presence of the wali. So it is about two families coming together. It's not just about a man and a woman coming together. It's two families as part of a society where you have two witnesses, you have the walima, where you announce to your community that these two people have become man and wife. So it is a social family relationship that brings two families together. It's not meant to separate two families. It's not meant to divide society. It's meant to bring society together. And then the wali gives his daughter in marriage on the following basis. زوجتك بنيتي or موكلتي or whatever على كتاب الله على كتاب الله وعلى سنة رسول الله وعلى المهر المسمى بيننا. I give you the hand of my daughter, my trustee, whatever, based on the Quran of Allah, on the book of Allah, and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. So brother and sister, when you get married, the common and the guardian rules that govern your relationship is the book of Allah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. Any problems, any differences, any opinions that you may have about marriage should be referred to Kitabullah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. If it agrees with them, then ala barakatillah. If it doesn't agree with them, then it is rejected. If it neither agrees or disagrees, then we refer to what is known as al-urf, the common understanding between people, between your society, okay, in the place in which you live and the day which you live, because some people get married and they still live 20 centuries ago. Or they live somewhere else. They're not living in Britain, they live somewhere else. Okay? And that is not fun. That contradicts the laws of Allah, the laws that govern our interaction together. And therefore, it is important to understand that sister, especially sisters, when you marry, you are marrying a man who will be responsible for you. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Okay, you're not married on a Western notion that you have 50% and he has 50%, and that you need to work things out, and at the end of the day, the head of the family is the man. This must be understood. This is not understood in our day and age. But it must be understood that the head of the family is the man, Who gave him that right? Allah gave him that right. And with that right comes a great responsibility. Wallahi, I'd rather not have this right and not have the responsibility. Okay? But a man is supposed to even be willing to die for his wife. That's where the responsibility comes in. It's not the other way around. Okay? And the man is responsible for upkeeping his wife, is for protecting his wife, for ensuring that she is happy, that her needs are met. Okay? So it is a responsibility. And with that responsibility comes leadership. But it's not a tyrannical leadership. It's not a tyrannical leadership. And it's not a leadership that is a dictatorship. Okay? And it's not based on order and obedience. It's not like that. If it's like that, then the man's got it wrong. And the woman does not need to take it. And she should seek help. Okay? If the man thinks that everything in the house and everything that his wife does must be referred to him and he must have a say that is black and white, an order to be carried out, then what sort of life is that? That's not a life to be had, even though we do agree that he is the leader, but it is based on two important things which are in the Quran. وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً رَحْمَةً. This is the basics, okay? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places between two people who get married two important things. Listen to me. Mawadda wa rahmah. What's mawadda? Mawadda could be interpreted very quickly as love, but I interpret it as homely love, a tranquil, serene type of love, and rahmah is mercy. Unless the leadership of the family is based in love and mercy, it's not on. A father is the head of his family. He rules over his children, but his rule is based in love. It isn't logic to think that a father would willingly hurt his children. He may, oh yes, he may hurt his children, but not intentionally. Because his comes from love and care and sacrifice. That's natural. Okay? But at the end of the day, he is the father, he is the guardian, he is the head. So the important thing now is that the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is our frame of reference in our marriage. This is the frame of reference. I would like to go through certain duties and responsibilities in marriage based from the Quran and the Sunnah and based from practical experience, but I also want to have some time to deal with certain issues which I think are very important also, which I've encountered in this country through dealing with couples who had problems in their marriage. Some of it ended into divorce, unfortunately, which is a pity because it could have been avoided. And I don't just want to deal with the academic side of things, because it's good enough to speak about duties and responsibilities, but at the end of the day you will meet real situations where you might have differences of opinion and where we need wisdom. For example, just as an example, a woman marries, she becomes pregnant, she gives birth to a child. The father, he wants to call him X, the mother wants to call him Y. Okay? X, Y, which is it? Okay? If the father is clever, okay, he's wise, he will say to himself, she has, carried this child for 9 months. She has gone through suffering of labor, the pain of labor, I'm told, is the most excruciating pain a human being can bear. We men, we don't suffer this pain. women do, okay? And the attachment between a child and his mother is so strong that if I do not object to the name Y, if Y is not something that I object to, I could object to the name Y. For example, if my wife wanted to name a child a name that not is appropriate to the place in which we live in. It could be Arabic, it could be Islamic, but it's not appropriate. For example, one of our prophets, one of our great prophets is called Cheat. Do you call your child Cheat? You don't, because that's a stigma that he will carry inside school. One of the names that we have in Arabic is Aus. Okay? If you named your child Aus, okay, that could be very well transferred into As. Okay? Is that a name that you give your child? You don't. Okay? So if you don't object to the name, object to the name from a matter of principle, you should allow, I don't care about the color of my living room, whether it's red or green or blue. Let my wife choose the color. Let my wife choose the furniture. But when it comes to important things, who marries my son, who marries my daughter, who does this, what happens to the family, important issues, I will put my foot down. Okay? So that I give my wife space to develop, to do her things, to become an independent person, which she is. Okay, she has got her things, her taste. Allow her that space. Allow her kingdom. Give her that. Don't always tighten the rope around her neck. Okay? If you are clever. If you're not clever, then she's going to be frustrated, fed up, and she's going to hate you. And at the end of the day, the marriage is going to end in divorce. Okay? So you need to be give and take. And the Prophet ﷺ says, مَا أَكْرَمَهُنَّ إِلَّا كَرِيمٌ وَمَا أَهَانَهُنَّ إِلَّا لَئِيمٌ. He who is generous to them is generous. And he who is not, who mistreats them, is a bad lot. And the Prophet ﷺ says, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The best amongst you is he who is best towards his wife or his family. And I am the best amongst you, the Prophet ﷺ, towards my family. Okay? So I've got some rights here, men's rights and women's rights, and it's not just the rights, but it's rights and plus things that should be considered. If I went to the rights of husbands, I might not finish, and I feel that will not be fair on our sisters, and therefore I think what I'll do is I'll pick up one of the rights and plus from the men's side and one of the rights and plus from the women's side and see how we will go from there. If it covers what I wanted to talk about at the end of the day, fine. And the first one is obedience in ma'ruf. A woman, when she marries, she is required to obey her husband. Why? Because her husband is responsible for the family. He is in charge. And sister and brother, let me tell you this. Let's have a case, a scenario case where your wife decides something. Okay? For whatever reason. You allow her because of your good nature. You allow her to take this decision because you think that she is better than you in this matter. This could happen. There are certain things in which my wife is better than me. If I recognize this, why should I decide? Why wouldn't I allow my wife to decide in matters in which she is better than me? Okay? But at the end of the day, regardless who decides, the wife or the husband, as a family, you are responsible for this decision. I want you to understand this, that even if your wife takes a decision, you're responsible for it. And not just as a family, you're responsible in it in front of Allah. So if your wife decides that your daughter marries someone who is not good for her, and because you cannot argue with your wife, you look the other side, you are responsible. You're still responsible for this act. Okay? And that's why, sister, it is a matter of responsibility. You need to be obedient to your husband, provided two things. Provided that what your husband orders you to do is not haram. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There is no obedience to anyone if it goes against Allah. Okay? A sister came to me and she said, my husband does not want me to wear the hijab in front of his brothers. I am sorry, that's not yours. That's Allah. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ says about the brother of the husband, Alhamu al-maut. Alhamu al-maut. The brother-in-law is death. You do not allow your brother to enter your house when you're not there, when no one is there. Okay? It is haram for a woman to be alone in a place where they do not fear to be interrupted, okay, with another man other than mahram. Her brother, her father, her son, her husband. But your brother cannot stay with your wife in your home when you're not there and when there is no one else there. Okay? That is haram. The Prophet ﷺ said, Alhamu al-maut. And there are miserable cases that have happened. Okay? So, haram is haram, akhi. I don't listen to anyone when it comes to haram. Not even your husband, not even your father. Okay? This is very clear. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. And the other things, the obedience, is, we have a saying, إذا أردت أن تطاع فأمر بما يستطاع. If you want to be obeyed, then order that which can be carried out. Don't make it difficult for me to carry out your obedience. You must know the limits of your wife, you must know her capabilities, what she is capable of, what she can do and what she can't do, and then don't demand of her things that are beyond her capability. Or she can't do them, okay? Or she is not trained to do them. Let me tell you something. If you marry a woman who comes from a wealthy family, okay, she comes from a wealthy family. She has never cooked in her life. Someone else does the cooking, a servant. Okay? She has never cleaned in her life. Okay? She is 20 years old. And you know about this. You know that she is, a bit spoiled. And you want her like that. That's why you're marrying her. Don't expect her to cook you meals and to clean the house and sweep and to turn into some sort of slave. That's beyond her. Why did you marry? If you wanted someone like that, marry someone like that. And therefore, in Islam, if you come to a woman who is working, she's got a job, okay? You ask her hand. I want to marry your daughter. You know she's working. You know she's working. Okay? You do not bring up the topic of work. You don't say, I don't want my wife to work when I marry her. Okay? And then you marry her. You can't after that say to her, I am sorry but I don't want you to work. Of course you can ask her not to work, and if she is agreeable, that's fine. There's no problem there. But if she says, I'm sorry, when you married me, I was working. So you must accept me as I am. This is in Islam is well known, that you accept her condition. When married, you didn't bring up the topic, so it's as if though it's a condition in the marriage. You marry someone who's studying, going to university, okay? And then when you marry her, you say, no, you need to stop going to university. I'm sorry, that's not yours. When you married her, she was going to university, she was studying. Why didn't you bring up the topic? Because if you brought up the topic, she may not have married you. Okay? So you accept the condition in which you marry a certain woman. Okay? And therefore when it comes to order, when it comes to obedience, the obedience is limited with those limits. That it is not against any ruling of Islam, that it is reasonable, expected to be carried out, that it concerns you and your marriage and your family. It doesn't concern other people. Many of the Islamic scholars, do not see it obligatory on the woman to cook and clean for the husband, for example. If that is the case with the husband, then how about his family? Well, of course not. She is not required to cook for his family. If she is not required to cook for him, how can she be required to cook for his family? Okay? You didn't marry her to cook. You didn't marry a cook. Okay? If you wanted a cook or a servant, you should have engaged a cook or a servant. You married a wife, someone to share your life, not to be a servant. Okay? We have a saying in my country that a woman, a mother, when she chooses a wife for her son, she chooses a daughter-in-law. She doesn't choose a wife for her son. She chooses someone who's suitable to her. Okay? And therefore she will find someone who will be obedient to her, who will do things to her, and not necessarily the best wife to her son. Okay? And that is true. Okay? A clever woman, on the other hand, should realize that there is a saying, an English saying, I think, that the way, that the heart to a man is through his stomach. Okay? And that if she wants to gain the favor of her husband and win his love, she must be nice to his family and to his mother and to his, without losing her face, or without losing her dignity, or without, it becoming a problem with her. Okay? So at the same time, sister, the mother of your husband is the one who gave birth to him. She's the one who stayed at night when he was sick. She's the one who cleaned him and took care of him and brought him up and made him who he is and gave him to you ready-made. Okay? If you want your husband to respect you and to love you and to feel indebted to you, then you must respect his mother. You must take care of her. But it must be done through your heart. It must be done for that sake, for the sake of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the same time, husbands should recognize that he is marrying a woman, that he is not bringing a daughter-in-law to his mother. Big difference. Your husband, your wife is your wife. She is not necessarily your daughter, the daughter-in-law of your mother. Okay? The relationship is that she is, of course, the daughter, but you don't choose her for that purpose. You choose her for you. So if you do put her in a position where she is living with your parents, to which I don't agree, okay, but it happens. If you have your wife living with your parents, and if you go out and you leave her with your mother, and she needs to cook, and she needs to clean, and she needs to be part of the household, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that, then you must take that into consideration. You must make up for her. You must take her every now and then out by yourselves. Okay? Treat her to a restaurant, treat her to a day out, have a holiday where you fly for a weekend somewhere else where there is no... Wallahi, I know a case where a brother married and he wanted to go on his honeymoon. And his mother said, no, we must all go. So the mother, the father, the new husband and the new wife, off they went on holiday on their honeymoon. And you know what? They made him hire a 4-bedroom bedroom in the hotel. So they were all sleeping in the same room. And this is a real case. This is a case which I dealt with by Allah. And there is a case where the mother-in-law, she opens her daughter-in-law's bag and she looks through it and, she opens her cupboard no privacy whatsoever. Okay? This is not a life that I would wish for my daughter. Okay? So I'm talking about extreme cases, yes. Okay? And, there are in-between cases. So the matter of obedience is one of the rights of a husband, but it must be dealt with accordingly. The rights of a wife, the first right is that she has a right to a dowry. And the dowry is not just about giving her some money so that she could buy things for herself as a form of a gift for the marriage. There is an important significance in here. The significance that she is an independent person, that she is an independent person who need to have money to be able to buy the things that she prefers. Very important point. The financial independence of the wife. Even if she doesn't work, okay, if you are wise, you would give her money for her to do as she please. Call it pocket money if you like. Okay? If you start buying everything for your wife, you buy her dress, you buy her underwear, you buy her makeup, you buy her... You abolish her independence as a human being. Okay? And if she doesn't have access to money, how can she buy? So the dowry here is a very significant thing. It is to focus your attention that this woman that you have took as a wife needs to have some kind of space where she could buy her things, where she could give gifts to her relatives. Okay, where she could buy something for her mother, something for her father. She doesn't need to ask you to buy for her or to give her specifically for this reason. So a clever person, a just man would, if his wife doesn't work and has her own income, he should provide something that is reasonable within his own income to give to his wife. The second thing in the rights of husbands, plus it's not just rights, but it's more than rights, is sincerity, that the wife must be sincere towards her husband. She must devote herself to him. Okay? She must not. And therefore, the priority of a woman when she marries is not towards her family. Because some sisters think that their priority is towards their own family, their father and mother. No, sister, your priority is towards your husband. And if you neglect your husband's rights and needs so that you could provide for your parents, then you don't understand your priorities. A husband should never prevent his wife from seeing her parents or from attending her parents, okay? But at the same time, he comes first. Not his mother, not her mother. In the case of man, his mother comes first. A man, his mother comes first. Okay? But it doesn't mean that he is tyrannical towards his wife. He needs to attend to his mother, not his wife. Okay? But in the case of a woman, her husband comes first. Then after that, whatever is allowed. So a woman needs to be sincere, totally devoted and sincere towards her husband. The second point, the rights of a wife, is upkeep. A husband must provide for his wife. If he can't, he shouldn't marry. As simple as that. Or if he can't, then he should tell her before they marry, I need you to work, and we need to share the cost of living. A good woman, a good wife, if she sees that her husband is unable to provide a decent living and she has the ability to work, then she should work to help her husband. But it's not a requirement on her side. It is a helping her husband, being sincere towards her husband. You understand the difference? The responsibility is with the man. The man must bang his head and provide for his family. If he is married to a good woman, a decent woman, and she can help, then she should help. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, O Messenger of Allah, I am poor. I am poor. And the Prophet ﷺ said, marry another wife. And he went and married another wife. And then he came to him after a while, O Messenger of Allah, I am poor. And the Prophet ﷺ said, marry ya akhi, another wife. He married a third wife. And then he came and complained, O Messenger of Allah, I am poor. And the Prophet ﷺ said, marry a fourth wife. He married a fourth wife, but his fourth wife had a skill. She can sew and make things. And she taught the other three wives, and they started a kind of cottage industry inside the house. They would make the stuff, he would take it and sell it, and he was well off, alhamdulillah. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with a wife helping her husband. Okay? And on the contrary, if your wife is helping you, my wife, for example, works. Okay? I appreciate that. She's not required to. She can say to me, no, I don't want to work. You must provide a roof over my head, and you must provide me with clothes and food, and I don't need to work. But because she works, I appreciate her more. I love her more for it. She's closer to me because of it. Okay? This is the kind of relationship that we're looking for. Let me move on to the topics that I want to discuss that I've come across. One of those topics is when you marry, you enter into a different world from before. It's a new step. Now I think that like everything in our day and age, if I get the opportunity to go and visit a place, for example, I would go onto the internet and try to find as much information about the place I'm going to as possible. If I want to go to Cairo, for example, for a week, what am I going to do in Cairo? Sheikh Google, ask him what's there to see in Cairo, and he will tell you, and he will tell you what to expect and what not to expect. For example, I was told how much to expect to pay for certain things. So when I went there, they charged me more than I expected. I said to them, no. Sheikh Google told me not to pay more than this. Okay. Oh, they said, oh, so you go into the... Yes, of course I do. Okay. If I wanted to buy some, those fish that you keep in a tank. Okay. And at the beginning I thought it was simply, you go and buy the fish and you put it in some water and that's it. And it turned out, no, you need to prepare the aquarium, okay? And you need to, not change the water and allow certain biological things to take place where anyway, it's a long story. So if I wanted to buy or to acquire a pet, a gerbil, what does it eat? I don't know what does it eat. Does it need to sleep in winter? Does it hibernate? So if I wanted to acquire a pet, I would go and buy a book or enter the net and find out and learn about it and its habits and things like that. And today we marry a woman or we marry a man and we don't know what we're getting into. So the first thing that we need to do is to find out about the other person. Not just generally, but also specifically. Okay? Who is she? What is she? How does he think? How does she think? What are the moods that she goes through? A big difference, and therefore I do strongly advise anyone who wants to get married, or those who are already married, to go and buy the book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, a very, very, very recommended book. The way woman deals with things, the way man deals with things. This brings me to another point in marriage, and that is communication. And this is one of the problems that many young people face today, how to communicate with one another. Okay? I might find that both of them are highly educated. Both of them have important jobs. And yet they do not know how to talk to each other. They cannot solve their problems. Each time they discuss something, it ends up in a quarrel. And ends up in fighting. And the reason for that is because they don't understand each other. Okay? A husband, when he comes home from work, this is not the time to ask him to fix something or to bring something from the shop. No, this is the time to allow him to rest, unwind, download the stress that he has had through the day. Okay? When your wife puts some food in front of you and you eat it and you don't think it's up to standard, don't start complaining. She had she has made an effort. Okay? Maybe there's too much salt in the food, or too less salt, or it's too hot, or not too hot, or whatever. Be gentle and say, thank you, Jazakallahu khairan, for the time you have spent in preparing me this food. And eat it, so what if you ate a food that's not very well cooked, or too hot, or too salty, or less hot, or less salty, or whatever. Okay? And if you feel that it is an important issue, then, get someone to train her. Subtly. You don't have to do it directly to insult her feeling and put her off cooking for you altogether. But you can do it, gently, subtly. If you don't know how, come and ask me, I will tell you how. Inshallah. Communication. And I deal with some high management people who do not know how to communicate with their wives. What I say to them, why don't you have a round table? What's a round table? This is a process, a very important one. A round table, what is important about a round table is that it doesn't have a head. When you sit around the round table, everyone is equal. There's no head on the table. This is number one. If you have children, include the children as well. Give them a seat. This is a family round table. And you should have a proper takings of minutes. You should buy a notebook, put it in the kitchen, call it the notebook, the minutes of the family round table meeting. And have another notebook and call it the agenda of the family round table meeting. In the agenda, you keep it in the kitchen. If the wife has a subject that she wants to discuss with you, she can jot it down for the next meeting. If you have something to discuss, you put it down. And then you have a certain time. Once every week, once every month, every fortnight, every 6 months, up to you. Okay? You sit down, you're prepared, you're emotionally, physically, and mentally prepared for the meeting. You can start off with some Quran, like we started off. Maybe one of your children can give a reminder, a small reminder, and then you enter. The window needs fixing. It's your job, husband. When are you going to do it? I will do it next week, inshallah. By next week, it will be fixed. Next week, you go through the minutes. We see from last week's minutes that you promised to fix the window by this week. Why is it not fixed? Okay, so you discuss, the important issues. The children's school, the buying a new bed, whatever. Okay, and this way you can put a kind of structure on your discussing. It's not haphazard. Okay, sometimes you want to go to sleep, and that's when the wife remembered something that she wants to discuss it. Go and wake up now and said, wife, please, Jazakallah khair, I want to sleep. I don't want to discuss anything now. Okay? And a husband could enter into what is known as his den. There is a den, okay, that every man has. And when he enters his den, he doesn't want anyone to disturb him. That's the wrong time for a wife to come and disturb her husband. Okay? And also the opposite is true. So we need to understand each other. Another thing is romance. Romance. In many cases, brothers and sisters complain of lack of romance. And you need to keep the fire kindled. You must. Okay? Your wife has only you. She doesn't have anybody else. And you have your wife. You shouldn't have anybody else. Okay? So you should make an effort. Just as you want your wife to wear nice dress, clothes for you, you should also groom yourself. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he says, by Allah, I groom myself for my wife, just as I want her to groom herself for me. You want your wife to put some makeup for you? Well, go and put some deodorant under your armpits. Wash your feet. Yes, yes. These are problems, serious problems. Wallahi, there are serious. Some brothers, you know, their feet stink. Go and clean yourself, ya akhi. This is basic common sense. And have romance, akhi. Take your wife to Costa or Nero or somewhere like that. To take her to a restaurant every weekend. Remember her birthday and take her out. Don't blow candles, because the link of blowing candles is haram, but to go out with your wife on her birthday, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not haram. To give her gifts. Every now and then, bring her some perfume. Bring her a rose, ya akhi. Bring her something. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it's the thought that matters. Okay. Make an effort. Make an effort to be romantic, to take her out. Look at the sky, look at the moon and the stars. You know, tell her that you love her. Tell her, ya akhi, that you love her. And of course, the opposite is true. And don't be afraid to express your love for your wife in front of your mother and your family. A woman likes her husband to stand up for her and to show the world that he loves her. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, I love Aisha, Aisha. He loves Aisha, radiallahu anha. And he once said, Allahumma forgive me for what I own, for what I have control of. I have been just. I have been just in what I have control of. And forgive me for what I don't have control over. What does he have control over? His heart. You do not control who you love. Even your children, you might love one of them more than the other. That's from Allah. You have no control of. But you have control over how you deal with them. You need to deal fairly. But if you love X more than Y, you can't control that. Okay? So love is natural. And it's a pity if someone doesn't love his wife. Or if a wife doesn't love her husband. So if you love each other, tell each other that you love each other. Let's make it a frequent thing. I love you. You need this. A woman needs this more than men. Okay? So you need to frequently remind her. And if you don't love her, lie. Yes, yes. This is one cases where the Prophet ﷺ permits a man to lie. Okay, because if you tell your wife you don't love her, World War III will start. Okay? This is one of the cases where you can lie. Okay? I love you. And treat her accordingly. So romance is very very important. The final thing which I will end with, I think I've excessed my time a little bit, is when you marry, you need to prepare the scene for you to understand your wife and she to understand her. If at all you can avoid living with your parents, then do so. Okay? When you marry, take your wife and live by yourselves. You need the first year to understand her and she to understand you. You need the first year to know each other, to find things about each other. Okay? The atmosphere of the family house will not help that to flourish. Recently, I had a case where the man loved his wife and the wife loved her husband, but they separated. They had to divorce. Why? Because of his mother. I'm not blaming the mother, by the way. Astaghfirullah. I'm not blaming the mother. But your mother could be the best mother in the world. And your wife could be the best wife in the world. You bring them together and it doesn't work. You can't blame your mother, you can't blame your wife, but that's the way it is. You come across some people and you just don't bring. You may love your wife, but your mother doesn't love her, doesn't even like her. Or your wife doesn't like your mother. Human nature, yeah. You can't impose love on anyone. Okay? But if you keep the relationship separate, the chance of them being civil and decent and nice to each other is greater. But if you make them rub noses with each other 24/7, okay, then friction will happen. Your wife doesn't cook well. Your mother keeps shouting at me. Your wife does this, your mother does this. At the end of the day, you get the headache. The best solution is for you to move out. I don't understand this cultural thing with you guys. You must live with your parents. Why? Why, Yahi? These houses are not made for such a thing. In my country, we like to build big houses if possible, if we can afford it. And what we do is we have flats. It's a villa from outside, but inside it's a flat. The father lives in one flat, his elder son in the second flat, the other son in the third flat, and the fourth son in the fourth flat. They all live separately within the same house. So the mother, the wife, can decorate her living room the way she wants. If you let your wife move in with your parents, it's your house, it's the parents. It's the house of your parents, it's not her house. She can't even move one chair. If she moves one chair, you're trying to take over. This is not your house, this is my house. Keep the chair where it is. Yes, and the mother has the right to do that. This is her house. Okay? So if you can provide a separate house within the same building or next door, by all means. But if you can't, and I went into a house and there were 3 families living there. And I was asked to come and look, maybe there is some jinn or some magic or some evil eye. And when I saw this, I said, look, you have all these people living, they must come on each other's nerves. Okay, so there is this tension in the air because of the human interaction. Natural. There's no jinn, or at least not, apart from the one who accompanies you and whispers in your head. And those are what we're dealing with. There's no magic. It's just human interaction. Okay? There is an ill feeling, a sense of tension in the air because of this interaction. Separate them. My daughter-in-law comes and visits us once every week. She spends the day. We have a meal together and then bye-bye, assalamu alaikum. Leave me and my wife, akhi. Why I can't wait for my last son to leave the house. I don't need them. I want to be alone with my wife. I'm an old man and my wife is an old woman, and we want to rekindle the love between us. We don't need, I can deal with my grandchildren for an hour or two, but then they become too much. Take your children and go home. Wallah. Of course, if your mother is disabled and she needs to take someone to take care of, that is understandable. Okay? So the situation is not 100%, but I think you get the message. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين.